And just when you think it couldn't get worse, it does, as the Kawhi Leonard situation becomes even more problematic. For those who are unaware, yesterday Chris Haynes dropped a bomb of a story as Randy Shelton, someone who is a close personal confidant of Kawhi Leonard, someone who was a personal strength and conditioning trainer for the Los Angeles Clippers, is now suing the Clippers for wrongful termination, and in particular in the ongoing treatment of Kawhi Leonard, where he is describing it was completely mismanaged. And not only did Chris Haynes drop the story, but he also gave us every single page of the lawsuit, giving us all the details. I love you, my brother, because there is some very valuable information in this lawsuit, so much so that I'm going to give you the footnotes, give you a little bit of facts that may combat with some of the information provided in this lawsuit, as well as just my own opinions towards the tail end of the video. So, what do you need to know? Randy Shelton suing the Los Angeles Clippers, and he has been a part of Kawhi's life ever since he was in college, kind of carried over throughout his years in San Antonio, and a lot of this picks up around the same time where Kawhi sustained that injury against Zaza Pachulia back during the 2017 playoffs, which really changed the trajectory of Kawhi's entire career. And this is where we get the first tidbit of very juicy information, as Shelton openly, he flat out says it, that the Clippers were illegally tampering, trying to recruit Kawhi through Shelton, promising him opportunities with the Los Angeles Clippers. And all of this happened before Kawhi even announced that he was going to test his free agency in the offseason of 2019, before he even told people that he was going to have his own medical staff, and of course, before he actually made the decision of going with the Clippers later on down that offseason. Crazy. Certainly illegal, not surprising, and the Raptors, you deserve a draft pick if I'm not mistaken, because that is unequivocally tampering 100%. However, things pick up in the timeline in the lawsuit at the 2021 playoffs, where we all know Kawhi sustained an ACL injury, which resulted in him missing the totality of the next season, and there were some questions on if he was going to miss a little bit more beyond that. And this is where the first bit of conflict starts to arise, as Randy Shelton, again, be very mindful, the man who was hired to be the mediator, the person who knows Kawhi's body, understands his health, what he needs that is necessary to keep him optimal and playing at a certain level because of the history that he has with Kawhi. He claimed that the Clippers rushed him back way too early, that a year wasn't enough, and that Kawhi needed a grand total of 2 years off to make a full recovery from the ACL injury. And when I say a full 2 years, I don't mean 2 basketball seasons. He is quite literally saying that Kawhi needed 730 days. 2 calendar years. It literally says that in the lawsuit itself, that Kawhi needed 730 days. And because Kawhi did not receive a full 2 years off, that it was now seemed as he was being rushed back on the court to play for the Clippers, as they needed to fulfill a level of winning and excellence that obviously he was brought there for in the first place. Now, I'm no doctor, but 2 years does seem a bit excessive. A quick Google search says that normally a year's worth of recovering time is normal for an ACL injury. And even shout out to our Dr. Brian on YouTube. He covers a lot of sports injuries and recovery times all throughout his videos and channel. And even he himself said that 2 years is a bit excessive. However, that's where the first point of conflict starts to arise. From there, in the lawsuit, it was carefully outlined every single time Kawhi dealt with any form of discomfort or may have resulted in some injury, which then would later result into him missing time and more or less connecting it back to the fact that he was rushed back from his ACL injury way too soon. In particular, on October 24th, 2022, an MRI revealed cartilage damage to Kawhi's knee, which kept him sidelined for roughly a month's time. He came back on November 17th, but then was sidelined once more because he had ruptured some ligaments in his ankle on November 21st, better known as an ankle sprain. The lawsuit would continue to follow multiple events that happened all throughout the 2022-2023 campaign. Some more noteworthy moments that happened throughout that regular season was that by January, the Clippers had heavily increased the load of Kawhi to over 35 minutes a game, and did even more, increasing in February to 38 minutes a game, including a 46-minute performance on February 24th and a loss to the Sacramento Kings. The Clippers disregarding Leonard's health in pursuit of some seeding positioning in the Western Conference, a claim that on March 25th, Kawhi was hit in the face and showed symptoms of suffering a concussion, but allegedly the signs were ignored and Kawhi continued to play. Then, despite promises to Shelton and medical staff at the beginning of the season, the Clippers would then proceed to ask Kawhi to play back-to-back games in March and in April. Kawhi would average over 37 minutes a game in April, despite there being several concerns being raised, and in particular continue to harp on the fact that the reason why he was being pushed out there to play more minutes and potentially playing back-to-backs is because they were trying to get seeding in the Western Conference. Now, I went back to go fact check and try to figure out what exactly were the details with a lot of those accusations, and some of it is true. However, some of it is also very disingenuous, such as claiming that Kawhi played an increased role in February, when we all know February is the month in which All-Star break is, and in particular, the 46-minute performance that is being highlighted in the lawsuit against the Sacramento Kings was the first game back from the All-Star break, so there's that. Also, I went back to go see in March and April if Kawhi did play back-to-back, and this is where the legal jargon may play a little bit of deception with a lot of people. I'm not saying that the question was not proposed to Kawhi. I'm pretty sure it was. However, in March, Kawhi did not play any back-to-backs, and the only back-to-back that Kawhi played in April was the last game of the season, where he would then proceed to miss about a week's worth of games because, as we all know, there is a break between the regular season and the playoffs. And all of this outlining, as many of us aware, resulted in Kawhi, unfortunately, despite contributing 38 points and 31 points respectively in the first two games in the series, Kawhi's body was failing him. Though characterized publicly as a sprain, an MRI would later reveal that Kawhi had suffered a torn meniscus and additional cartilage damage in his repaired ACL, which would end Kawhi's season and require additional surgery. Which, for the people out there who may be confused, again, this is all chronicalizing things that happened during the 2023 campaign, and the injury in which he is referring to is after the Phoenix Suns series, where Kawhi only played 2 games and then missed the remainder of the series. And I think many people knew that the labeling of a sprain was very disingenuous, because it didn't make any sense that if it was just a sprain, why he would miss the totality of that first round, especially when it was winnable, and then, as we all know, later revealed to be a torn meniscus. Also in the lawsuit, Shelton claims that a huge reason why a lot of these things happen is because the Clippers left him in the dark with a lot of very important and pivotal medical information, so much so that they actually hired someone else to kind of just do his job and replace him, and just awkwardly push him over to the side, where once more he was just left in the dark. And also alluded to the fact that a huge reason why Kawhi played so many games in the previous year, in which, for those who are unaware, he played 68 games in last year's regular season campaign, is because the Clippers were trying to push him out there as much as possible. So these are a lot, and I do mean a lot, of allegations that are being put on the Clippers, some of which, again, legal jargon, you're trying to win over a lot of people, especially when you are leaking this type of documentation to the public. And so some of the wording is certainly a bit extreme. However, there are some concerns that are raised from the Clippers standpoint that is certainly understandable. In particular, if there were some real concerns that Kawhi sustained a concussion on March 25th and the Clippers didn't go through the protocol at all, that's pretty crazy. And also the concept that Kawhi was pushed out there and forced to play 68 games last year, which, in all honesty, as many people were watching him, certainly came across as odd for someone who was so precautious over the years to play that many games. Definitely didn't make that much sense, and certainly raised some red flags. Many people just wrote it off as the new rule kicking in, where you had to play a certain amount of games to qualify for All-NBA status, which would then increase the odds for Kawhi to receive as much money as possible. But again, certainly odd for Kawhi to play that many games. Now, with all that being said, where exactly do I fall in with all of this? On one hand, I want to be fair to Kawhi and say this: I don't know your body, it's your body. I do believe many people, when discussing Kawhi, they're very disingenuous, very pushy, and I do believe when it comes to someone's health and well-being, a lot of people shouldn't have that much information and that much say-so on what a player has and has not done to properly prepare themselves. And from everything that I hear from trainers and players and just people who have been around Kawhi, he does the things that are necessary for him to be properly prepared for when the regular season comes, but his body just keeps failing him. And I do believe many people keep pushing this narrative that he's not trying enough or he's a worse superstar, when the truth of the matter is, in all honesty, bro, there's just some players who are not built to play basketball for an extended period of time. I truly need people to understand that human beings should not be 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 7'3", whatever these players are, running and jumping up and down 40 plus minutes a night, and all the other practices that go along with it, the long nights, the excessive training. That's not normal. And I think think more people need to recognize that. That's not excusing certain decisions that are being made, but the idea that Kawhi may not be trying hard enough to be out on the floor, I do believe it's not any one of ours business to make the decision for Kawhi on what he should or should not be doing with his body. It is his body. He makes that decision. As I go down this path of being Kawhi leaning, if you will, I'm going to say this: if these are all of the requirements for a team to be precaution for Kawhi Leonard to be on their team, this is pretty excessive. A 2-year period for an ACL recovery time is excessive. Having absolutely, positively no wiggle room on the type of back-to-backs that he can play, even if it comes at the end of the season, knowing that you have a week's worth of break until the playoffs, that is very excessive. Highlighting how you played a certain amount of minutes in a game coming off of the All-Star break all sounds very excessive. But if all of that is required for what Kawhi needs to do for him to be prepared and ready, fresh, and 100% healthy to go into the postseason, I'm starting to understand where a lot of people are coming from when they say this is, in all honesty, not worth it. Is Kawhi really worth all the headache of keeping him, especially if you had the decision to give him a contract, which they did way too early on? They should never have given him a contract in the middle of the season. What do y'all think was going to happen? Kawhi was going to just up and leave and go somewhere else? No, he's not. Who Kawhi Leonard is as a player, he knows for a fact whatever team he goes to has to accept everything that comes along with him. And of course, that does mean a player who at his absolute best, his ceiling, performs at levels in which can rival all-time greats. But if we're only getting that for a handful of games throughout an entire year, or you don't even know if he's going to be properly prepared or available for the postseason, again, I don't think there's that many teams lining up to sign Kawhi on their roster, especially to the tune of 45, 50 to potentially $60 million. So the Clippers rushing to sign Kawhi to that contract in the middle of January just because he seemed to be available for as many games as he was playing, completely unnecessary. At the end of the day, that is a decision that the Clippers decided to do. They are way too deep. They committed all this draft capital to building a team around Kawhi and PG, and so they just had to stick it through, my boy. And come to find out, all this time for the last 2 to 3 years, y'all been dealing with this bullshit, and y'all still gave him a contract? That is crazy. Now, with that being said, there is a bit of a caveat where a lot of this shit I don't believe. This whole idea that the Clippers were the one pushing him out there, forcing him to play games, I think that's a bit dragged out. And a huge reason why I believe that is because of the decision of Kawhi to play or attempt to play in the Olympics during the offseason. Even though sometime during the offseason, he needed to have and eventually did have a surgery. Especially when we later find out that the reason why he fell out of contention of being on that team isn't because of his own decision, isn't because of his own precautions, isn't because he believed that he was not ready, he was not prepared, that it was not a great decision for himself, but because the Olympic Committee had to make that decision. And that's where a lot of this shit continues to contradict itself. Because if you want me to believe Kawhi just sitting out there, he just rubbing on his knees, oh man, coach, I can't go out there, coach. Oh man, I can't do it. Oh man, I'm putting ice back on. I'm taking pills, medication. I can't do it, coach. Go out there, boy. I'm gonna push you on out there. They forcing him to play. Ain't nobody forced that man to play in the Olympics. He made that decision himself. So all of this is all very, very interesting, even though, sure, you could certainly argue that some of the concerns raised in this lawsuit are credible and valid. I think what a lot of people are going to take away from this lawsuit is the big headache that has been Kawhi and his health and how to properly manage him over the course of his tenure with the Clippers, rather than feeling any sympathy for him at all, because some of this stuff does come across a bit unreasonable. But yo, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell to be updated on more news being dropped on this channel. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.